Yo, what's good homies, and welcome back to another video on my channel. Today I'll quickly go over the Queensland team that was named for Game 2, just give my thoughts and opinions on the changes made. First up, I'll go through the players that didn't make the cut. Most of them I saw coming, but there were a couple that I thought were a little surprising. We'll start off with the most obvious, which is Milford. 1, he's injured, and 2, Jonathan Thurston's fit and ready to go, so that was an obvious one. The second man to be dropped was Justin O'Neill, and that was another obvious one. Damn near half the team that was picked in Game 1 are players that are out of form. I feel like since they were there for the times that we won, it's like Kevy just gave them a chance to prove their worth. Guys like O'Neill, Nate Miles, Aiden Guerra, and Jacob Lillyman on the bench. Obviously they failed to get the job done, so they got the axe, and I'm totally fine with that. Alright, so the last two that they cut, I was a little surprised, and being a Broncos fan, a little disappointed. Sam Thaiday and Corey Oates also got dropped. Now Corey Oates, although he had a decent game, I could understand why they chose Holmes over Oates. Valentine Holmes is just way more of a threat compared to Corey Oates. I've said it for the longest time, and I think Corey Oates shouldn't even be playing on the wing for the Broncos. Yes, he's decent under the high ball, and yes, he's a big body, but that's pretty much where it stops. In terms of a modern day winger, I feel like Oates is too predictable and too one-dimensional. Why do you think they continually kicked the ball to Oates in Game 1? I feel like it's because he wasn't a threat. They say there was no reason behind it, but it was obviously a part of their game plan. With Oates being as one-dimensional as he is on the wing, it made it easier for them to reset in defense. Well, that's how I saw it at least. Anyway, those were the changes from Game 1. Now I'll quickly go over the squad for Game 2. In alphabetical order, we got Darius Boyd. He was a little shaky in Game 1, and I heard rumours that he might be playing centre. I mean, New South Wales' back line is pretty much comprised of fullbacks who transitioned into centres and wingers and whatnot, and vice versa, so that'll be pretty interesting to see if it were to happen. Next up is Will Chambers, pretty solid player, lacks vision from time to time, but on his day he can compete with the best of them. Next up we got Gavin Cooper. Not too sure about Gavin Cooper. If I had the choice to pick between Cooper and Thaiday, I'd go with Thaiday every day of the week. I'm guessing he's there for that Thurston combination. Next up we got Cooper Cronk. Nothing much to say there, so we'll move on. Dane Gagai, outstanding in Game 1. I'm glad he's back. Next up we got Matt Gillett, one of my favourite back rowers, but I think that's just my Broncos bias talking. Alright, next up we got a few debutants. First up is Tim Glasby. I honestly don't know much about Tim Glasby. From what I've read, he's a solid player. I saw a couple of articles just straight up roasting him, and I'm hoping he can come out and prove them wrong. Alright, so next up is the young unit from North Queensland, Cohen Hess. I think everyone saw this one coming. His strike rate for a bench player is bloody unbelievable. He's hard to contain on the fringes, and I'll be interested to see how he handles this beast called Origin. Alright, on to another debutant, Valentine Holmes. Can't wait to see him in the maroon jersey. In terms of strike weapons and unpredictability out wide, he's been one of the best this season, so I'm glad he's finally getting a run. Next up we have Josh Maguire. He's been pretty safe this season, which is what you want. As far as long-term locks go, I think when Corey Oates finally makes that transition to the back row, that jersey will most likely be his for the taking. But yeah, anyway, I trust Maguire to get the job done. Next up we have Michael Morgan, another player I'm on the fence about. I feel like Cameron Munster will be more threatening as a utility. That's pretty much all I can say about that. I think Munster is just a more dangerous player. Alright, next up we got Dylan Napa, another powerhouse. He had a decent opening stanza, but he kind of fizzled out. Hopefully he marks up the big boys in Game 2. Alright, moving on. Josh Papali, who I think they'll move back to the front row. I think by the time this video goes up, the actual lineup will be out, so we'll soon find out, I guess. Moving on, we got the return of Billy Slater, who should have been there for Game 1 in my opinion. It baffles me why they didn't go with that combination to begin with. Next up we got Cameron Smith. Nothing much to say about him either. We all know how good he is. Another player making his return, Jonathan Thurston. Glad to see him back. There's a lot riding on this game for JT, given that it's his second last State of Origin game ever, and yeah, I can't wait to see him back. Alright, we're down to the last player, another debutant in Jared Wallace. He's been a beast for the Titans at club level, and I'm interested to see if that transitions over to rep footy. So there you have it guys, that's Queensland's team for Game 2. There's some interesting omissions and inclusions, and I'm really interested to see how these debutants go. There's a bit of a storyline there with Glasby. He'll be out to prove a lot of people wrong. And the players I'm most interested in seeing is Cohen Hess, of course, and Valentine Holmes. I'll be interested to see if he'll run as much as he does in the Sharks from dummy half. So yeah, as for my tip for Game 2, Obviously I'm going to pick Queensland. I'm way more optimistic going into game 2 than I was in game 1. I didn't make a tips video for game 1, but I tipped Queensland to barely win, and if we were to lose, we were going to get blown out. I just feel like New South Wales, in terms of strike weapons, they've got them all over the park. Not only that, they've got one of the safest players on the bench with Trbojevic, and 2 more strike weapons sitting on the bench with Graham and Jack Bird. Now you compare that to our bench for game 1, Michael Morgan, Jacob Lillyman, Sam Thaiday and Aiden Guerra. There isn't much impact there for us, if any at all, if you compare it to New South Wales. But yeah, anyway, that's gonna wrap up this video. I trust Queensland to tie the series. Hopefully that's the case. Let me know in the comments section who you think will win game 2 and what you're most looking forward to. And as always, drop that like button for more content. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you later.
Time is running out for everybody, especially me right now. If anyone can help me, boy, I'm down and out. Just fading every day.